Hey everyone, and welcome to the Monetize Your Expertise podcast. I'm your host, Grant Weherley, the online course guy helping you every week to monetize your expertise. Just go to myepodcast.com for tools and links and more for all episodes. Welcome back to the Monetize Your Expertise podcast. Today I'm here with Rob Walling, who's a serial entrepreneur who most recently co-founded Drip, a fast-growing email marketing automation tool. And if you're interested, the value prop of that is it's email marketing automation that doesn't suck, which personally I'm a big fan of. So thanks for joining me today, Rob.
It's my pleasure.
I know you've done a lot of really interesting things in your past, and Drip's an awesome tool. I personally have used it and tested it myself. I actually have a previous episode that talks about this. I'm really excited to dive in deeper about email marketing and email marketing automation. But I know you've done some things, other things as well, like the Startups for the Rest of Us podcast, Zen Founder, all of which are popular and successful things. So can you give me an idea of your timeline of how your entrepreneurial path took hold?
Sure. I'm a software developer by training, and I really do love to write code. And so from about 2000 until 2005, I wrote a lot of code for salaried gigs, consulting, that type of stuff. And I pretty quickly realized that that wasn't going to be my long-term thing, and I knew that I wanted to have something I could leverage. Basically monetizing my expertise in a way that wasn't just selling dollars for hours, because the hamster wheel kind of didn't work for me. And so I started launching software products very poorly at first, because there weren't podcasts like this, and there weren't the resources we have today to go out and learn from other people. And so I had several failures, but learned from each of them. And then eventually I acquired a very small software product from developers who didn't know how to market it. And I knew just enough about marketing by then from my failures that I was able to build that up to a couple $1,000s a month in revenue. And it was a very boring application. It was invoicing software. And from there, so that's about 2005-ish. And over the next 2 to 3 years, I just parlayed that. And each new skill I learned allowed me to either launch or acquire a new little software product or website. And so that was kind of my story until 2008, 2009. I was blogging about this for about starting in 2005. And that's really when the kind of the personal brand side came up, and where I started getting so many questions that I decided to write a book about my experience of leaving employment essentially and living off of my income from products. And I owned random stuff. I had an e-commerce website that sold beach towels. I had a couple ebooks in really bizarre niches like bonsai trees. I did have some stuff that was in the more technical areas. I had a job board. I had a productized service back before we called it that. Then I had some software products. So I really view my kingdom or my portfolio as like two different silos, and one is the software products. And so Drip is the big one. It's, like you said, lightweight marketing automation, and that is what I'm all in on now. And then there's this other silo, and that is all of my personal brand or my expertise stuff that people know me for in the startup space. And so I have a book called Start Small, Stay Small. I have a podcast called Startups for the Rest of Us. I have a conference called MicroConf and a blog called Software by Rob. And these are all based around basically bootstrapped and self-funded startups. And some of them might be software. There's a lot of productized service people. There's a lot of folks selling their expertise, even in info products, ebooks, online courses, and that type of thing.
Awesome stuff. And actually, this makes me think of the talk you did last year at the conference here in Bangkok. That's originally where I met you at. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you did the presentation that had a section of it that was about like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 entrepreneurship. Is that right?
That's correct. The stair-step approach to bootstrapping. Yep. Step 1, step 2, step 3.
I still remember that, honestly. I was a big fan of that because you talked about like when should you diversify and try a bunch of different things? When should you double down and focus? When should you scale? And that was the first time I'd ever heard it framed that way. So I think that's also very relevant to your story. So could you walk us through the different stairs of entrepreneurship?
Sure. Yeah, this is a kind of an approach that I've come up with in almost retroactively. I did not set out to do this, but in looking back at my kind of step out of salaried employment into product income, and then looking at hundreds of founders that I now, talk to and interact with through my podcast and blog and conference. I've started noticing this pattern, especially as things have gotten more competitive. Because it used to be, if you wanted to do software, the holy grail is this recurring revenue. And same thing with, you sell in online courses. The holy grail is a membership website, right? It tends to be that monthly payment that you get month after month. Problem is, it's become quite competitive to do it these days. And so if you don't have a ton of experience, you don't have a ton of confidence, you don't have a bunch of marketing tools on your tool belt, really, really hard to launch something with recurring revenue from the start. It's still possible, but I see it becoming more of a challenge. The successful people, I shouldn't say all successful, but a good chunk of the ones who are creating like a predictable, repeatable way to do this, they're actually starting at what I call step one. Okay, so there's 3 steps total. And step one is when you pick a product that is a one-time sale and it has a single marketing channel. So, imagine a WordPress plugin or maybe a mobile app, a Magento add-on, even an ebook, a $20, $30 ebook, and a single traffic channel. So organic SEO, maybe it ranks high on Amazon. Maybe you have, YouTube traffic, maybe WordPress.org, just one of those things. And you basically learn how to optimize for just that channel. So in if you had a WordPress plugin that helps someone integrate with, Chargeify, for example, you build the plugin and you can build it in certainly less than a month of spare time if you're a developer. And then you put it in WordPress.org, the repo, and you're not going to have any idea how to market it. But over time, you're going to learn to write copy. I mean, you need to educate yourself, and eventually you'll get some traffic, and hopefully you can monetize that. And there's models to do that. Same thing if you're writing an ebook. You might want to go for organic SEO, organic traffic there. You might want to build up a blog and get some traffic in, and then build an audience and pitch people. But it's basically, in essence, it's a single channel. What I've seen, the mistakes I've seen is folks have a step one app like a WordPress plugin. Then they try to diversify and they try to go after a bunch of traffic channels they keep hearing about. So what about pay-per-click advertising? What about content marketing? What about the social media? What about these other things that people are using to get traffic? And the problem is if you have a one-time sale that's pretty low end, let's say $19, $29, $39, a lot of these approaches aren't feasible because you don't have the lifetime value. And so my recommendation at that point is not to try to grow that single step one app that you have that's selling for $19, $29, $39, app or ebook. It's not to try to grow that. It's to try to repeat that step with another one. It's to diversify your portfolio. So if you have a single ebook, maybe you write a second one. If you have a single WordPress plugin, maybe you launch a second one. And you do this until you have enough money to buy your own time. In essence, that you have enough cash coming in monthly that you don't have to work for anyone anymore. Once you own your own time, you will have enough experience, enough confidence, and enough marketing tools in your tool belt, and enough income diversification, right, to be able to quit your job and be okay with it. Because the problem with one app and one small app that doesn't have recurring revenue is if you quit your job and then that app gets slapped by Google, some reason WordPress kicks it out of its repo, just any accident happens and you lose all your income. But if you have 3 or 4 of these things, and I've seen this happen over and over, you now have the skills and the revenue to do that. And then you buy your time out. So now you have enough time to actually sit there and try to focus on something that gets a recurring sale, like a SaaS app or a membership website. There are countless examples of people doing this with WordPress plugins, Magento add-ons. And in retrospect, it's what I did, and I hadn't realized it at the time, but I started with this one-time sale product, the invoicing software, making a couple grand a month. And then I just cobbled together 3 or 4 others until I think I was making about $8,000 a month. I lived in Boston, so it wasn't cheap. I had a wife and a kid, and kind of bought my own time out. And that's when I started moving into recurring sales. And it's just an interesting model. It takes a little longer, but it's kind of like working your way up, and it's way more repeatable. And I think it has a lot higher chance of succeeding than when someone tries to just shoot for the fences, swing from home plate in the major leagues, their first at bat, instead of working your way up through high school, up through college ball, and then actually getting into the majors.
Absolutely. I totally agree with your methodology there, which is why I still remember it a year later. But I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of people who maybe are kind of edging into this initially. Do you have any specific marketing channels that you think are maybe good for people who are just starting out?
Yeah, I think SEO is always a good one, and it doesn't even need to be. You don't even need to go crazy with it. If you have a blog, if you're a good writer, then you should write. and that it's naturally going to draw people in, whether it's via organic search or whether it's via social media. People are going to pay attention if you're good and you love it and you're passionate and you have a unique voice. If you enjoy actually talking, physically talking instead of typing, then I would say go start a podcast, and you can build an audience that way. Again, as long as you have a unique voice and you show up every week and you deliver that 30-minute episode week after week after week, you're going to be able to build an audience. And it's not just building the audience, it's actually appearing in iTunes, and that's kind of the optimization piece, is you got to learn what keywords to put in. It's not too hard to game iTunes, to be honest. And so those are kind of two early approaches that I would look at, is like SEO and Google is a good one. SEO, it's not SEO, but it's kind of, I guess it is search engine optimization, and iTunes is a reasonable one if you have an iOS app or a podcast. Amazon's is actually not that hard to, I won't say to game, but to increase your ranking with some pretty simple things. And then WordPress.org and the Magento repo none of those are hard to rank in. They're not as sophisticated as Google at detecting people trying to game it. And YouTube as another one. I mean, I realize I'm naming a bunch, but like any of those are massive search engines, all of them. And a lot of them, people have buying intent when they're in there, or at least download intent, In WordPress.org, people want to download something. In Amazon, people want to buy something. YouTube maybe a little less, but it's the second largest search engine that there is, right? Google is number one, YouTube is number two. It gets an enormous amount of traffic. So if you can get videos up there, that's actually not a bad way to do it. I think any of those is perfectly reasonable to base a step one business on.
Nice, good stuff. And actually, I think just yesterday, somebody was telling me about YouTube specifically in this context, that it's relatively easy to rank for, 10 million times more so than actually just ranking within Google, within the approach of SEO that everybody takes, right? But there's all these other channels that you can do it in. So I'd like to sort of segue into talking specifically about Drip. It's always cool to talk to the founder of a tool that you've used. What led you to make the decision to really focus on email marketing and email marketing automation?
Well, so my co-founder Derek and I were working on another SaaS app that I still own called HitTail, and that's a long tail SEO keyword tool. And I really wanted a way to collect email addresses from every page of the site, because there were 250 different pages of the marketing website. It's a lot of content, FAQs and such. And there was no easy way to just add a form. Like, we didn't want to add it in the footer because nobody clicks those. And this is in 2011, early 2012, where there was no opt-in monster, there was no SumoMe, there was no Drip. There were none of these widgets that were easy to add. And so Derek, who at the time was a contractor for me, but now he's co-founder with Drip, he spent about 2 or 3 days just hacking JavaScript. He downloaded an open source library, and he's a really good developer. It took him a long time to style it, make it look nice, and then to wire it into MailChimp and get the autoresponders going. It was very cumbersome. And so at the end of that, we were still working on HitTail and trying to grow it, but I realized, there's another business here. Like, that was way too painful. How do we make this simpler? And so that was the initial seed of Drip. It was really just built as an email marketing tool with that front end JavaScript capture widget. So it has bounce trigger, or like exit triggered, and it has light boxes, and then it has the little toaster pop up in the lower right when you scroll to a certain point or after a certain amount of time. It has all types of different settings, and that was the initial innovation that got people in. And then it's super, super simple to set up a campaign based on any timing you want to send emails out. And so we launched, and we did pretty well. We got it up, to 7 or 8K in recurring revenue right after launch, because we had a pretty big email launch list. But then we ran into the issue of it wasn't different enough. It was different, but it wasn't different enough from a MailChimp or an Aweber. And we kept getting the question of, how are you different? And we could explain it, but it just didn't seem to really differentiate. And so that's when we decided to head into the automation space, the marketing automation in essence. And we kept hearing, boy, if you guys could build some triggers and some link click to move people between campaigns, basically some lightweight Infusionsoft type stuff is what we kept hearing. Because MailChimp and Aweber are inexpensive, Infusionsoft and Ontraport are very expensive. There's nothing in the middle. And so that became our new focus. And we spent about 4 or 5 months building out all of that, trying to keep it extremely easy to use, extremely easy to figure out. It's not the 2 days, 3 days of solid training. that you need for a tool, a complex tool like Infusionsoft. We've really tried to make it usable. And once we launched that, it took off for us. And so Drip has grown very quickly since we launched all the tagging and the email automation stuff.
Amazing story. And you also brought up something that I did want to bring up, because I think it's for people who are using email marketing or email marketing automation for the first time, and you start doing some searches for all the different tools, it can get quite overwhelming. And I've done a past episode where I tried to break down the differences in my own opinion, but I'd love to get your idea on that. Like, how are the different services segmented, and like what are the differences between a MailChimp and a Drip and an Infusionsoft and things like that?
Sure. Yeah, there's this group of tools that are basically, they were built, let's say, 10 years ago-ish. I mean, it's not exactly, but you have your Constant Contact, your Aweber, your MailChimp, your Campaign Monitor, and they're really good at sending email newsletters. And they have lists. So it's a list-based tool where you create a list and then you grab a form for that list. And then when you put that form on your website, everybody goes into that list. And that's where they stay. They don't move around between lists. And so often you'll have the same person, meaning the same email address, on 5 different lists, but you can't tell that they're the same person. And when you send an email, you kind of blast it out to the list, and there's very little segmenting or any type of intelligence you can do based on who they are and what they've done. Have they visited your pricing page and they haven't become a customer yet? Well, you don't know that. So that's what those tools do. They're good at sending newsletters, not so much at like the segmenting and figuring out, who people are. Then like the step up is to a tool like a Drip, an Infusionsoft, an Entrepreneur, more of a marketing automation tool where your entire account is just one big list. And so no matter where somebody comes from, they get put into the center, into the account. And then there's either some tags or there's just subscriptions linked to that person. So that email address can only appear in the system once, and they might be subscribed to 2 or 3 different autoresponder campaigns. You might go in and search and say who has visited my pricing page 3 times in the last 12 days and is not a customer or has not started a trial. So it can track events, it can track link clicks and page visits. It can send people to other applications if they do something, if there's lead scoring, if they're really engaged with your emails, clicking a lot, their lead score goes up, and you can say when their lead score hits a certain value, let's send them into our CRM system, or let's add this other campaign that really has more sales emails. And so that's all the automation pieces, and that's often called marketing automation. And I kind of group that. The nice part is Drip is the least expensive of kind of the big marketing automation players, and that was by design. Then I would say there's these other ones that are kind of, I don't know, they're almost like customer automation. It's much less about marketing. And that's going to be tools like Vero and Customer.io, and maybe even Intercom, although Intercom has a lot of in-app messaging and stuff. But Vero and Customer are very much about communicating with your customers. And they don't even have like HTML email capture forms. I mean, you can only get emails into them via API. So they're much less about marketing to external prospects. There's no lead scoring. There are some automation rules, but it's not something that I'd personally use if I was a blogger or trying to market an app. I think those are kind of the 3 breakdowns. Then you go up from there, and there's enterprise tools. There's your HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, stuff that is probably not even relevant to your audience at all. It's very expensive, $1,000 a month and up. And these are heavyweight marketing automation tools that do a lot more, but they're enterprise, and they're quite difficult to learn to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for doing that breakdown for me. It can get quite confusing if you just see a list of all the different options. Like you just listed off like 10 or 20 different ones. But I think when you start to understand the different categories, it's useful to understand which category is most appropriate for you, and then you have a much smaller list to evaluate. So in terms of I guess the mid-range types of tools that Drip would fall into, that category, lightweight marketing automation tools. What would you say? I have my own opinion of this because, again, I did my best interpretation of what the different value props for the different tools were. But how would you say the core value proposition for Drip is compared with other tools in that category?
So in that category, so you're not including Infusionsoft, is that right? Because it's more expensive?
Correct. Yeah, that's kind of like a step up.
Got it.
I would say.
So the price value prop is not going to be appropriate because they're kind of all priced very similarly. I mean, they're within 10 or 20% at that point. So the thing that I would say about Drip compared to, let's say ActiveCampaign, or what are the other mid-range ones?
Honestly, the main ones that come to mind are ActiveCampaign and Drip.
Yeah, to be honest, that's for me as well. Our big focus has been on two things. One is usability and ease of getting to use the tool, like ease of learning the tool. I have used ActiveCampaign, and when I log in there, since I am not, intimately familiar with it, I see an enormous amount of options right on the homepage. I mean, you can kind of do everything from the homepage, and that is actually a little bit overwhelming for a new user. So with Drip, we specifically tried to not do that. We tried to limit the options that you can do as you go along and kind of hold your hand and move you along this path of learning to use automation at a speed that is a little more, that we feel is a little better for folks who are starting to learn it. The other thing we really focused on is hammering first-class direct integrations. So rather than using Zapier, which ActiveCampaign says, they have 150 integrations. Almost all those are through Zapier. It's a third-party service, and those work because we integrate with Zapier as well. But they are more prone to error, and they're a little more brittle than a direct integration with the tools. And so we have like 30 something at this point, 35 maybe, like direct integrations to multiple apps. We also integrate with Zapier, so we get those other 150 as well. But we're really trying to make it so that we're a best-in-class email automation tool and that we are integrating with other best-in-class apps. We're trying not to build everything. Like we have seen, let's say Infusionsoft built a shopping cart, affiliate management, landing pages, the kitchen sink. They really built a lot of stuff onto theirs. And we're trying to focus on being the best at what we do and building features for software, software products, software companies, SaaS companies, consultants, and people selling online courses, as well as your audience, like you said, coaches, speakers, and authors. This is those are our core focus. I'm not sure that ActiveCampaign is necessarily focused on them, but these are the people that we listen to as we're building features. We are launching multiple features per week right now. We typically launch one integration a week, and we're launching sometimes a feature a day if they're small enough. But that's basically all we're doing is just pushing features, and we're trying to push towards the forefront of, we're trying to stay at the forefront of this automation stuff in thinking, since we use it in so many use cases ourselves, we are coming up with novel stuff that no one else has built. Features. There was one that it's automatically resend a broadcast if someone hasn't opened it after 2 days, as an example. You can change the subject line.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and that was a hack from Noah Kagan. I mean, he sent it through his AppSumo list, and then we had it built within a week or two, and it's that kind of stuff. We have we also have retroactive tagging. Like, let's say you send an email and you forget to tie that link to say, hey, if they click this link, then tag them with this. You can retroactively go in, and everyone who clicked that link, you can retroactively tag them. No one else has that feature. So it's that kind of stuff that we're trying to think to really be different and to actually think through, like, how would a marketer, a complex marketer who wants really good analytics, how would they use this system rather than just kind of building another random feature that someone requested?
Yeah, I think that's a great approach because I've used a lot of tools that they try and do kind of everything and not very well versus a core set of features that are very targeted, that are very well executed. I think that's a great approach. And it's also good to hear that I guess my interpretation of what Drip is really, really good at was pretty much right, which is you guys have a really good onboarding process. Like you said, it very much holds your hand. You have a good autoresponder that comes when you sign up that helps get you educated, so it's not overwhelming. Whereas actually, you're right, ActiveCampaign very much is overwhelming when you first log in, and I'm actually familiar with a lot of the features that marketing automation tools use. But you log in, you're like, what is this? How do I find this? It's just very confusing.
Right.
So I totally agree with that. And to sort of recap, I guess my own personal journey with this, I guess from a user perspective, is I looked at both, and I really appreciated the onboarding process of Drip. And there's a lot of things I liked better about Drip, but the one thing that made me go with ActiveCampaign was the visual diagram creator thing for marketing automation. But it sounds like you actually sent me an email before we started this interview. That's something that you guys are working on as well.
Indeed. And, it's by user request, to be honest. We just had enough folks that we trust and that know what they're doing, that they said, look, you guys are on feature parity or ahead of ActiveCampaign at this point, except we don't have CRM. And so if you need CRM, you should probably do ActiveCampaign, and it like heavyweight CRM. And we don't have the visual builder. And so we sat down and we've spent the last 3.5 months hashing out a visual builder that I think looks pretty sharp. And we are within, maybe a couple of weeks tops of being in alpha with that. And we were literally putting the finishing touches on it as we speak. And so it's like all the power of these triggers and these actions. We have 14 or 15 different triggers you can tie into. Including, someone gets a tag added and you can take an action, or someone, clicks on a link or visits a web page or subscribes to a campaign or is unsubscribed from a campaign. Or, there's so many things you can trigger based on that. And then on the other side, you can then take actions and you can apply a tag to someone or remove it or add a custom field or do that kind of stuff. And so very, very excited. I genuinely think this is the biggest feature, the most powerful feature we have released in a little bit over a year. And since we released automation, this is definitely the biggest feature we released, and it should really up our game in terms of people who have made the decision, like you have, to use ActiveCampaign because of that builder. Hopefully, we often hear, I like Drip better, except for you don't have the builder. And so I'm hoping that
That's so true.
I'm hoping it goes away.
Yeah, honestly, that was my exact interpretation. It's like, there's a lot of things I like about Drip better, but this is kind of one thing that I really personally need just because of how my brain processes automations. But yeah, in terms of the efficacy of using that, really crazy going from, actually it's funny, is I've seen that it looks like MailChimp is trying to roll out automation as well at a very high price point, and I'm assuming it doesn't work very well. But anyways, going from something like MailChimp or Aweber, where very limited segmentation and automation abilities, and then switching over to a marketing automation tool that allows you to send somebody an email like, hey, you just visited my consulting page. Do you have any questions about that? Here, schedule a free call with me. Something like that where it's very targeted to a very specific action. Extremely powerful stuff. So I encourage everybody listening today to take a look at these different tools and see how you can use them. But I also want to talk about something I noticed that you guys do, which is very unique, is that you have Drip Sherpa. So can you tell me a little bit more about what that is and how you've integrated that into your business?
So Drip Sherpa is actually a third party. It's a guy named Philip Morgan, and he basically has a productized consulting business. And so we have a little ecosystem forming of consultants. There's about 8 or 9 who are basically kind of partners of ours, and they've learned to use Drip really well. And they know a lot of the ins and outs, and we give them early access to features and early access to information. And those are the people that I'll be emailing with our alpha release of the of the visual builder. And from there, they then put their clients on Drip. And so we've started to see some results from that. And Drip Sherpa is one of our premier consultants there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it actually threw me off a bit because your face is on his homepage.
Oh, is it? But, it's my testimonial. Yeah, I know. I should mention that.
Yeah, because it's just there's one face and it's yours, so I assumed it was something that you did. But is that something that you guys have intentionally cultivated? When you saw that starting to happen, that you're like, we can leverage this to help spread this to more people?
Absolutely. Yep. And we have more plans for it than we've been able to do thus far in terms of expanding it and making it more valuable to them. But already, I have kind of an early email list with it's got the tag Drip Insiders. That's the tag I use it internally. Not that anyone can see that, but it really is something that I want to cultivate because it benefits everyone, right? It benefits us because we're able to have kind of those folks that are bringing new customers in. And it benefits them because they have a stable platform and they have more say. They can come to us and say, hey, I really need this feature for my clients, or we encountered this problem, can you help? So we're able to give them priority support, as well as we will prioritize their feature requests over others because we know that they are power users. And then, of course, it works better for their users because their users are going to get really good service because they kind of have, a productized consultant coupled with a product, Drip, that is actually listening to that productized consultant. So it's not as if they're productized consulting over MailChimp or whatever, right? Where they're not going to be able to get features built just because the company's too big. So I feel like it's a triple win, and we definitely have cultivated that, and looked for additional, people who are interested in partnering up with us.
Great stuff. And I'm curious about your decision about in-house versus out of your actual core company of having that service. Did you ever think about bringing that in-house? Because I know for these kinds of tools where there is a learning curve in terms of drip specifically, just learning any new tool, or learning specifically marketing automation for the first time. That is a barrier for these kinds of products, and I think it's a challenge for many SaaS companies. So what was the thought behind not bringing that in-house?
Well, we also do it in-house. We have multiple different webinars / demos / trainings that we will give out for free to people at different parts of the funnel. So if you go to the homepage, you request a demo, we will do a pretty in-depth demo. And then we have something we call Account Concierge, where it's a very nominal fee. It's nowhere near the the $2,000 that some of our competitors charge, but it's a few $100s. We will basically spend a few hours. We have a phone conversation, kind of get the use case, and then we'll go draw up the diagram of how we want to lay out the drip account. And then we get on a Skype screen share for about an hour and we say, look, we're going to configure your drip account the way we would do it. Like we're experts in this tool. We know a lot about email marketing automation, and we're going to show you how we're going to configure it. We're going to set up your tags, we're going to set up your flow. And so they are able to see how we're doing it. So they're not only learning the tool as they go, they're learning how to configure it, and they're getting kind of the consulting expertise of us. So we do kind of do it, but we also want to encourage, these are not mutually exclusive things. If someone comes directly to Drip and they're already in our funnel, yeah, it makes sense for us to service them. But there's a lot of folks out there who are doing marketing on their own, and they're creating great content, and then they're getting people who may never have heard of Drip, and so those folks deserve to be able to also kind of monetize that expertise, right, of bringing them into Drip. And so far it's worked out. It has not been a conflict, or we haven't had any types of issues with that.
Great stuff, and I appreciate you using the little tagline there in your explanation.
My plug for you. Yep.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, of course, again, we mentioned before that there's like at least 3 categories of these types of tools. So I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of, is something like MailChimp or Aweber useful for a specific category of people? Is something like Drip useful for a specific category of people? Who are the types of people that should look into your tool specifically?
Well, so I think if you're just starting out and you really are just trying to learn, I think MailChimp's a great option. It has a free plan. You can take your time. You don't have to worry about paying. Drip starts at $50 a month, and that's not something that you want to pay probably unless you're going to get going really fast. If you're just kind of starting a blog or starting a consulting agency, I do think MailChimp's a good option for the first, let's say, 3 to 6 months as you ramp up. You're going to outgrow MailChimp pretty quickly is the bottom line. And that's when I would look to kind of up the game to, if you have any type of business that is a SaaS company, is selling software, selling online courses, selling ebooks, if you are a speaker, author, or a coach, or a consultant for that matter, any of those where you are actually making money and you're doing some online marketing and you have some kind of list that is, I'll say, over 500 people, there is a ton of value in starting to be able to tag and identify and get the history of those folks. So those are kind of the niches that that's the way I break it down in my own head of when I would use each tool.
Awesome. I appreciate the honest answer. I think that was pretty unbiased, because that's pretty much exactly what my opinion is as well, is that if you're a total noob, MailChimp, Aweber is probably easier to use. Actually, MailChimp is probably the easiest, but then you hit the ceiling of limitations very, very quickly. And so going on from there to something mid-range is a lot more effective. So I'd love to talk about, as a email marketing automation expert, I'm sure you've seen some best practices of the best way to use it, or maybe some common mistakes people make, even if the common mistake is just not having it. But what do you think are some common mistakes and successes people have with this kind of thing?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that once you get stuff wired up, is to just think about some basic stages of your funnel. Okay, so if you're a consultant, maybe you have just subscribers to a marketing list, right, or a marketing course. And then you have prospects or hot leads who are actively engaging and you think might someday actually buy. And then you have folks that are actual customers. If you're selling software, maybe you have that same marketing group. They're just people, they're subscribers, and they're reading your emails. And then you might have trial users because they've signed up for a trial or downloaded a trial. And then you might have customers. And ebook, same thing, right? It's like there's a marketing list, and then there's your trial people who've downloaded a sample chapter, and then customers. Just breaking it down that far and just having 3 simple tags is like a great way to get started and dive in. And then that alone will teach you the basic mechanics of how to use this automation stuff. Because pretty quickly, if you give something away in exchange for an email address, and let's say it's an email mini course that teaches them the 5 best ways to do long tail SEO, right away, people are going to start signing up if you have any traffic. And those people by default are just, hey, they're your leads. Or really they're subscribers, and they're just kind of engaging. And a lot of those are, college students doing research and competitors and, I don't know, virtual assistants just doing stuff. Like, they're never going to convert. But then if you get just a little bit of lead scoring in there, you can activate lead scoring. And lead scoring just looks at email engagement, right? It looks at how often they open, how often they click, and it should look at which pages they visit on your website. You can set a bunch of different tuning things if they do a certain event, like download a specific report or something. And their lead score just goes up or down based on what they do. So now you can differentiate and say, okay, so I have just subscribers, and now I kind of have hot leads in that group. Like, it's the folks who are really engaging with me, and they have a higher chance of maybe becoming prospects. So maybe you tag them with a hot lead thing, or maybe you start sending them more frequent emails or more sales-focused emails to see who converts. And then when someone signs up for a trial, tag them as a trial user, put them into a different funnel. Now you don't want to educate anymore, right? You're not trying to educate on the high level, top of the funnel stuff. At this point, you're trying to educate them on your tool because they're using your software or they're using your ebook, they're reading it. And you really want to dive into the specifics of what they're doing and to keep them on track and to lead them through and get onboarded. And you can onboard someone with an online course and an ebook as well. It's not just software. You want people to consume your material that they buy. And then that's as a trial. And then once you get them into customer, it's a whole nother funnel. But that's kind of the fundamental. I mean, just having those 3 segments and then being able to just tag and offer different content to the 3 groups is like, that's step 1. I mean, that is the biggest thing that I see people not doing. And just getting that set up, it's just insane the leverage you get on that and the results that you'll see just from having kind of a simple flow set up.
Great stuff. And I really appreciate you breaking this down into very specific, actionable advice. I love these kind of interviews where I feel like I personally am learning things, and anybody who's listening can get a really solid overview of something complicated, which is marketing automation. So thank you for sharing all this. But now I'd love to segue a little bit. So we've talked a lot about from a user's perspective, but I'd love to talk a little bit about sort of, your personal perspective of running this business. For example, I know one of the biggest things, or the 2 biggest things I would assume in SaaS business, which is 1, getting customers, and 2, maintaining customers. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think is the biggest cause of people dropping off from Drips?
Well, it's interesting. So before, there's this point, when you build a software product, there's a point called product market fit. And it's a complicated term, but it really just means, have you built something that people really want and they really need and they're willing to pay for it? That's all that it means. And that is way, way harder than everyone thinks. Even experienced people who have done it. I mean, I've had, more than a dozen products, still took several different tries to finally hit that point where we'd built something that people wanted. So before that point, everyone's dropping off because you just haven't built what they need, and they don't need it quite as much as the money you're charging. And there are better alternatives, and you haven't figured out your messaging. You haven't figured out your value proposition and why you're different than others. After product market fit, I think the most common reason that people churn within the first 60 days typically is that they're just doing an extended trial at that point. Often they'll enter a credit card and their trial runs out, but they still want to try it. And they'll make a payment or 2. And so the churn with a typical SaaS app in the first 60 days is a lot higher than the rest of it. I mean, you can literally see 10% first month, 10% second month, and then 2 and 3% thereon. And it's because people just extend their trial, and either they're still comparing you to competitors, and that's why they leave, or your onboarding just doesn't quite work for them. Whatever it is, whatever your flow is or your wizard or the emails you're sending, it's not quite getting them engaged. So if they leave before that first 60 days, you have basically an onboarding or a competitor problem, I think. The other thing could be they're not qualified prospects. Because if you drive, let's say I took out ads on maybe an e-commerce website, and I sent 10,000 people who really have great e-commerce stores to Drip. They're probably going to churn out pretty early because we have some good e-commerce features, but we are not totally focused on the e-commerce niche. And so that would be a case of just unqualified prospects, not quite the right niche. Now, after the 60-day point, when your churn it should drop way off. And if it's not, you haven't reached product market fit. But once you have, I think the most common reason for churn at that point is there's a lot of credit card failure. Some people, there's literally like people go out of business. People will shut down businesses. There are still people who cancel because they switch, but that's actually, if you have a 1 or 2% churn, you're more likely to have the bulk of that just be this other stuff rather than someone becoming disgruntled, because switching costs with email providers is non-trivial, right? It's not, we do like concierge, we actually move a lot of people for free and move their subscribers and do all that, but most other providers don't do that. And so switching off of, a tool like Drip it's a bit of work. You have to export your subscribers, copy your emails out, you lose some history and all that. So it's less likely to happen than some of those other reasons, although that may be surprising.
Awesome. Yeah, it's honestly, I was thinking about what I would assume your answer to this question would be. So as a person who creates online courses and video trainings and things like that, I have noticed that's a big difference between different companies, SaaS companies. Some of them have a really, really good onboarding process. They've got a lot of support videos. They've got all this training. So you do feel like your hand is being held. And there's other ones that have very minimal. You get stuck constantly and there's really nowhere to go. The support's not as good. Again, from a user's perspective, I think that makes a huge difference. And one of the reasons why I'm a big raving fan of certain tools that I use is always because of that education process, which again, as an online course creator, I find very valuable. So specifically with regards to that, what are some of your thoughts with regards to the strategies that the process that you took to create a really effective onboarding process for your product?
Oh yeah, onboarding is so important. You go to, we spend so much time and so much money driving people to our websites, and then a lot of time writing headlines and convincing folks that our product is good and it can be a really good product. And then they eventually decide to sign up for a trial, and maybe they enter their credit card, maybe they don't. But once you get them in there, you lose people instantly if you're not helping them, just walking them through, holding their hand literally. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. It's just, I want my hand to be held when I get into a new app because I'm confused as to where things are and what it actually does. I'm trying to think of, is this going to work for me? And so the two biggest things that we found that have been amazingly successful are, number one, in-app onboarding, where, like you said, we kind of have this guided setup where you can click through and it says, hey, do you want to send emails, more marketing emails or more customer-oriented emails? And so a lot of people pick marketing, and then we say, okay, do you use a landing page provider like Lead Pages, Unbounce, Kickoff Labs, or none of the above? And so you can select. And each of these things, we're kind of doing a little bit of setup in your account to try to get a sense of who you are and to set up a couple automation rules and create a form and a campaign for you. We ask if you have a payment provider. Do you use Stripe, PayPal, Chargeify? We integrate with 5 or 6 of them. And because that can help us tag people as customer. So we really help people try to get a sense of that. And then we have some other steps in the app to get people to install the JavaScript on their site, because that allows us to do lead scoring and allows us to detect subscriber time zones and cookie people and just do all types of stuff. So that's really good, is to have kind of an in-app flow. And you can imagine if you're doing an online course, you could do something similar. It wouldn't be in-app, but it'd basically be in the course. I mean, really getting people oriented with a tutorial or two. And then the other thing is timed emails. It's hitting them up with email every day or two based on what they have or have not done during their onboarding. And that's where a tool like, let's say, a MailChimp or an Aweber can't do it, because it doesn't know what you have and have not done. But Drip does. I mean, you literally can throw events to Drip and you can say, hey, this subscriber just created their first project in the app, or this subscriber just watched the first part of the my online course. And so then you can say, okay, if a couple days later they still haven't watched part 2, then you can ping them, boom, hey, how come you haven't watched part 2? And so it's that type of stuff. The follow-up emails that are based on things they have and have not done are very, very valuable. And even getting a rudimentary, sequence of maybe 4 or 5 that are sent out over a couple of weeks is quite powerful, just as a reminder, because we all need a reminder sometimes. And you'd be surprised how many people sign up for an app and then forget about it. And those emails that kind of ping them and remind them have had really good results for us.
Great stuff. And so I'm curious how you balance in your onboarding process between, for example, here's how you can use Drip versus here's how to use email marketing in your business, because this is something I've been thinking a lot about recently. And a good example would be Lead Pages. They have a lot of really good training, and I noticed that they've put out some really good free training as part of their product that seems like it addresses what would be the number one biggest cause of churn in their business, which would be, okay, cool, I've got this really nice lead page. How do I drive traffic to it? So they got like a free course on webinars, free course on Facebook ads, things like that, which I found was a very interesting approach. And I've seen some other companies do this as well. And so have you encountered the problem where people might get stuck or not really fully understand how to leverage the actual category of email marketing versus your specific tool? Have you found that to be a problem? And how do you balance those two educational fronts on your onboarding?
Really good question. I'm glad you pointed that out. There's a difference between educating them on your tool versus educating them on your category, or what your tool does. So the education on the tool is a piece of cake because you know how to do it. You have a whole knowledge base based on that. You can help them with support if they have questions. There's a ton of stuff you can do there. Educating them on the category, we get a lot of good questions via email about, hey, I'm not sure how to get started. And so for that, we have actually greatly expanded our knowledge base and added entire screencast videos, complete email templates that are like verbatim of what Drip sends to their customers that we just put in a zip file that people can download and use for themselves. So those are our knowledge base. They're typically in the knowledge base, and we will link to them from in the app. So if someone's like trying to write their first sequence, we'll say, hey, link over here and see how we do it with Drip. The other thing we have in Drip is we've actually have some hooks in the app itself. We offer like blueprints in the app. So it's not just an education or a video or something. It's actually a button that you click and it says, hey, you're trying to create a 5-day mini course or a 7-day mini course. Click here and it pre-populates your entire autoresponder sequence. And it basically has emails, 1 day apart. It says in weekends and all that's like pre-populated. Intro and outro of each you just add your specific content kind of in the center of it. And so it's just more like white glove service. Someone is there building this, so they're not staring at a blank white screen. So I think there's kind of two ways to do it. There's like having hooks in your app to do it, and then there's creating training around it. We've done both, but I'll admit we still have a ways to go. Like I'm still actively working on this. I have something in my my Trello board right now to create some more educational, because we do see people emailing and saying, I'm not sure how to get started with marketing automation. And so we are writing white papers and ebooks, and we're actually releasing an ebook in the next week or two addressing these types of questions, because it feels like there just can't be enough education on these topics.
Absolutely. Great stuff. And I think that's, again, from a user's perspective, that's absolutely integral if you're using a new tool and using a new initiative in your business. So as we kind of wrap up this interview, and again, thank you so much for joining me and sharing all of these really great tips. I have a question for you that I'm curious, based on all of your experience with all these different products and projects, how would you start over from scratch if you had to start everything over?
I need to think about this one for just a minute. If I were to start over today, I would start creating content. I would start doing things in public and start shipping. And by doing things in public, I mean publishing blog posts or publishing podcast episodes or publishing, video podcast episodes or shipping ebooks or software products or something, getting small things out in the world. Because the sooner that I did that and got over the fear of shipping and getting in front of people, the sooner that I was able to start getting constructive feedback. I was able to learn to overcome my fears, and I gained the confidence and the experience and frankly the ability, like the marketing sense, to just make things better. And it's shipping products and it was getting things in front of people that gave me the confidence, the experience, and frankly the skill set to where I could start making things better. Making things better than my other abilities were, because it takes months, years to develop these skills. It's easy to look at someone who is an amazing blog or is creating amazing online courses or shipping good software products or writes really good, and to think, that's not that hard. The reason it's not that hard is because that person look easy, and they've probably been doing it for years and been doing it in public for years and getting feedback on it. And so that's the long answer to your question is, if I were to start over these days, I would try to get things out in public as quickly as possible, and I would double down on my again. And so if I'm a really good writer, like I said before, I'd be doing blogging. If I'm a good speaker, I'd be, podcasting and probably trying to do public speaking and speak every meet that I had the chance to do. But it'd just be getting in front of people and testing my message and figuring out what is it that resonates with people and what is it that's falling flat, and then just changing it up and getting over my fears as quickly as possible.
Great advice. Get out there, get in front of people, get the confidence, develop the skills, and learn and iterate and go from there. I very much agree with that. So thanks so much for joining me and sharing this great stuff. If people are interested in learning more about you, about Drip, about what you're working on, where can they get in touch with you?
Well, if they want to check out Drip, they can go to getdrip.com. I actually have a pretty good mini course that I wrote called Why Marketing Automation is the Future of Email Marketing. You can subscribe there. And then I'm at Rob Walling on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys who are listening got a ton of value out of this. I know I did. And go take a look at Drip. Getdrip.com. Great tool. Highly recommended. Thanks again, Rob.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
Hey, entrepreneurs and experts, I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you learned at least one new big idea that helps you evolve your skills and gets you closer to monetizing your expertise and creating that successful knowledge business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and Stitcher, and check out myepodcast.com for all episodes as well as the tips and tricks mentioned in this episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.